Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 126th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-host Shannon B. Today's topic is the super duper topic of self-awareness. Would you please share what this means to you, Shannon, and why you're happy to discuss this here today?
Sure. Thanks for asking. Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday morning. Yeah, self-awareness is a big one for me because really it comes down to being like my ability to tune into my own thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions, how I show up, how I want to show up, right? Being able to assess both my strengths and my areas of opportunity, we'll call them, and also how others perceive me too, right? And the ability to say, ooh, don't really like how I spoke in that situation or how I reacted to that. Being self-aware ties into me with accountability, which is a big part of making amends. And I want to live in step 10 in my recovery today, where I can identify quickly when I've been wrong or when I should have done something a little bit different, right? And this isn't about beating myself up, just staying in tune, and that helps me to treat people with love and respect, kindness and compassion, not without fault, but it's easy. I can identify a lot in others when people aren't self-aware, right? It's like they can't read the room. They don't realize how they're coming across, right? And it's like I can pick up on it. But it's because I'm very in tune with myself too and how I show up.
I love that. Um, to me, this is such a huge topic that I did look for a definition of it because I wanted to see, and then, for me, I'll get into what it means to me right after, but in the 12-step spiritual journey, self-awareness is the practice of becoming conscious of our thoughts, motives, behaviors, and emotional patterns. It's about the ability to witness ourselves without judgment, to recognize how our past shaped us, how our attitudes affect our actions, and how our actions impact others. As the Living Clean reminds us, self-awareness is not about perfection or punishment. It's about developing an honest relationship with ourselves so that change, healing, and freedom can take root. Through these steps, especially steps 4 and 10, we learn that self-awareness is a spiritual awakening in motion. The daily process of waking up to who we are or who we're becoming. You know, Before I had the tools of the steps, I considered myself, self-aware. And the actual tools of really, I would say the biggest thing was step, 4, like in my first round of the steps, it for sure was like 4 to 7 was the most revealing to me about what I didn't know my reality actually was. And not just my external reality, I was definitely deluding myself on how other people were treating me, but I
Mhm.
was also deluding myself on my right to reactions and my own motives, really. It wasn't until I could break it down with the tools of the steps, which is why I like that definition especially mentioned step 4 and step 10. Without awareness, I have no direction for my change. And without that direction, I'm probably just going to repeat the past. Without seeing, it's like without seeing the light, I'm still in the dark. And self-awareness is that light, where I feel like I take a mix of honesty and humility and end up with my truth. you know?
Like that a lot.
And it's so when, gosh, when, I don't know which of us picked this, but somehow it was on the event for today. And I was just like, this is perfect, you know? And I think the funny thing is it might have even been Brian who picked it and didn't show. So
I'll
it's
take
like,
it.
thanks, BW, for just leaving us with it.
I'll take it. You
Yeah.
know, when I think of the self-awareness piece too, it's something that I um learned this year is that full acceptance of who I am, who I'm not, and who I'm not going to be, right? And not viewing that as a failure, but this is who I am. These are things that I'm not, and these are things I'm not going to be. And
I,
that's okay. And be good with that, right? And being able to own some things. Like there are things and stuff that I just don't do well with. And
yeah.
it's not a punishment to myself. It's these are my life is based on my experiences, a whole ton of them, right? What I've learned, how I've grown. So certain things rub me the wrong way or I have difficulty processing them, I can give myself that grace and know that, but I can also know my limits and my boundaries. And I don't have to put myself in every single situation that's uncomfortable and like it's some sort of challenge or heroic badge to survive it.
Yeah. I love that that you just brought up, and I really like what you just said about like who you are, who you aren't, and who you're not going to be. You know, there is an awareness about our limitations that isn't like condemning ourselves to a smaller life, but it's not about setting ourselves up for disappointment about what's just not going to happen realistically. Like I think that's one of the things, inside addiction. It's like there can be real delusions of grandeur, like real delusions of grandeur that lead to a perpetual state of dissatisfaction in life.
Absolutely. And yeah, like it was in some further work on self, I guess you could call it, that wasn't related to this program, that I learned about that. And I also learned about that when you are married to your partner, to look at them that way too. Here's who he or she is, who he or she isn't, and who he or she will never be, and to be good with that. And same with our relationship with our parents, with anything that's concrete and big. And yeah, I wanted to share it because I thought it was really cool and it's helped me a lot too. And I'm good with it. With
And it wasn't until doing the steps that I even had an awareness of the level of intolerance and acceptance of others that I had. And then it's been really in the last about 8 or 9 months since starting this podcast that I've really had some moments where I'm like, wow, that is so damaging to others. Like, not only of my side of it, but the ripples that I've caused in how other people feel about themselves, you know? I guess it's great if, if you're like somebody who's just so self-aware that you don't have any needs of a validation from others. But let's cut the shit. Most people do. Most people have something, and especially if it's somebody they care about, and you're continually treating them with intolerance or lack of acceptance, that really can be damaging to the core for their own confidence of ever being right in a decision. Like if you're condemning their decisions constantly, they're never going to believe in their decisions if that's the only feedback they have. And unfortunately, with really close friends and family members, you might be the only person who's telling them feedback on that. And when that hit me, it's really like it really made me look at sarcasm, and it really made me look at like kind of any sort of like negative jokes like that are just like that little bit of like maybe there's an insult in there, or maybe I'm pretending it's not real, but maybe it's still hurting them anyway.
some good food for thought there too, right?
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to ask me the first question?
Sure. Hang on, please. For
Sure.
1 second. I'm
Hey,
trying to
by
think
the
of an
way, two things.
interesting.
I love you. I've missed you, and I'm grateful we're here together. That was three. I snuck an extra one in.
You are just the best. I love you too. And for those who are listening, it was just this wonderful human's birthday.
Happy birthday to me yesterday. Ooh. You know, it's funny though. I honestly actually said to my wife, I'm like, I'd be happy just celebrating my clean date birthday from now on. Isn't that funny?
Yes, that's great, but you get to get both.
I know.
Okay, so I want to read this, right?
Yep.
And I want to ask you
Okay.
how you feel about it. So the question is, how do I know if I'm self-aware? Self-awareness is the ability to focus on yourself and how your actions, thoughts, or emotions do or do not align with your internal standards. If you're highly self-aware, you can objectively evaluate yourself, manage your emotions, align your behavior with your values, and understand correctly how others perceive you. So I really like this, and I decided I'm going to
Hmm.
add this to my like daily readings and things to help me stay more self-aware. But do you feel like how do you feel since getting sober and being in recovery? Your self-awareness has increased in understanding like your how you evaluate yourself, how you manage your emotions, and how you align your behaviors with your values and how others perceive you. Like, so
It's a
many things like for
constant state of
self-awareness
change.
grows in that, whereas in addiction, how I wanted others to perceive me was so different than now.
Yeah. And now, like, okay, here's probably one of the biggest fundamental things I think for myself about that is that when I was in my addiction, I wanted y'all to change. And now I want the change to be in me because it's like through my journey of self-awareness, I see that all my dissatisfaction is my perception and my reaction to things. Whereas before, I used to completely play the blame game and externalize all the damage in my life to being someone else's fault. And so, it's like okay, the first round of steps, the first round of steps kind of shone the light on a lot of what I needed to work on. But what's happening now is that I think with the program for me, there was so much to absorb the first round. Like I was living so opposed to how the program is. Like so opposed. I had so little in common with being consciously connected with a higher power and living presently that it's just like I couldn't see all the tools for what they were in the beginning. Like I mentioned to you, the great resurrendering of March 2025. Why? Because it was just like I had used surrender to rid me of my addiction, and somewhere in me didn't quite have that relationship yet with a higher power to fully surrender my defects and shortcomings. And it wasn't until I, kind of made a commitment last October to pray and meditate more that started really coming into a greater effect. Like you're not surrendering something if you're not connected to it. Like you're not giving anything to it. Like and so there was still a major cycle for me happening of feeling bad for something I did with a shortcoming or a defect, and also worrying about my ability to change it. Like those two things were happening a lot before March, still inside my life. And I was still probably putting on a pretty good show, but there was still that happening, and now that's happening way less because of the way that I'm praying more, the way like that my trying to up my gratitudes in my prayer, and then just having that connection where, like where I'm really seeing it as surrender. Like I had a really good crossroads a couple days ago, and you know, I was having a great morning. Had a great podcast to start the day, and then there was just a conflict with a loved one that it was really financial based and stuff. And I'm not going to get into all the details here, but what happened was that I was completely like off center after this conflict and interaction with him. And there was a point where, like I've been really listening a lot to that Michael Singer books and that, and his surrender experiment in particular recently. And I got to a point, it was about 5 p.m., and I just said, I'm literally at the same kind of crossroads I was just reading about yesterday. And it's like either I choose to let this go, or I'm choosing to live in it defectively. Like this is exactly where I'm at, and it's like I try to either I try to surrender that, or I'm not walking the walk. Like it was like calling me out on whether I was running a fucking program or talking about running a program. And and it was really cool because even just that conscious moment of seeing like that awareness that it really was like what reality do I want to be going towards? Like that what you focus on becomes greater, like that sign at options. Like where am I looking? Am I looking at keeping myself in the shit? Or am I actually trying to get myself out wholeheartedly, trying to take steps forward here? And by the time I was at my meeting at 7 p.m. that night, it was almost like a joke to me. I was like, ha ha, look at, I fucking did it. And it was great. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that was kind of what it brought up for me.
Well, you just helped me learn a lot about it too. And I really like that. So I guess now I have to answer my own question. And
You certainly do. And you can read all that again because I loved it. And I think it's valuable for the people out there.
sure, and just read this part of it. So self-awareness is the ability to focus on yourself and how your actions, thoughts, or emotions do or do not align with your internal standards. If you're highly self-aware, you can objectively evaluate yourself, manage your emotions, align your behavior with your values, and understand correctly how others perceive you. You know, I see manage your emotions, and I'm a lot further along in doing so than I was in the past. Even even in my sobriety in the past. I'm further along with that. That how I feel doesn't mean it's a reality, and then it's okay to have emotions, but I don't have to live in them, right? Some days that's a little bit challenging. This week was one of those weeks where I was very tired, very burnt out, stacking of things, and I just was highly sensitive, highly reactive, and I really like felt things like my physical, when you feel stressed in your mind, but your body also takes it on too. And I'm grateful for that self-awareness because I started to get an icky feeling and I was like, what's happening? But I knew, right? Like, I was not even like, what's happening? It was like, I knew what it was. And it was that my actions weren't aligned with my core value. And that's what was making me feel that way. So it was a great test in, okay, I can change this and put a positive spin on things, not let this particular situation take over me. Find some laughter, find some joy, and like take some deep breaths and be on with it. And it was nice. But before, I wouldn't have been able to really sense that as much in addiction. It would have just been that person's fault. I was right. And I would have drank over it a lot.
Yeah.
So that part of self awareness is is really cool, right? And the ability to change that. Also, I was able to see how am I probably being perceived? Like, how would I perceive somebody if they were acting the way I was or speaking the way that I was? And I was like, probably not how I want to show up. So, what do I got to do to change that? Why am I off counter, right? So then, yeah, that helps me to kind of course correct my behavior so that it aligns with what I truly feel internally. Objectively evaluate myself and align my behavior with my values. Like, that's tough sometimes. If you ever just been in a defect or in a area that just, even though it's making you feel sick, it's just like you can't get off the ride.
Whoa, yeah.
And I did the thing I know doesn't work for me, which is venting it too much that it gasses me up again. And yeah, I did all of it.
Well, inventing it to can create an unintended pity party. Like, even if you're like, I'm not trying to create pity here. Sometimes it's like, well, then what the hell are we making? You know,
Yeah,
it's
I
like
know
you
what you're
put a
saying.
roast in the oven, you're
My
probably going to get a roast out.
my go-to is not really the pity thing. It's that I want people to share their own similar experience, gas it up, be angry or irritated like I am, and also validate what I'm feeling.
I would argue that that's an anger-driven pity party. I would argue that to the end of the day, I've caught myself doing the same thing, and pity parties have been something I've been really analyzing in myself.
I thought they were like, whoa, it's me.
No, but it's like, join me in the anger, join me in the sorrow. Like, you know what I mean? If you're getting people to kind of like come on side with you, I'm pretty sure that's the pity party, even if it's anger.
Well, ladies
Because
and gentlemen, you've witnessed live live on air.
I would do the same
Me
thing.
rubbing against something that was causing friction right now, and you said that's the pity party. You know what, my friend, I can't argue that.
And you know what? I would even call it for me, like I would call it my bitchy pity party, where it's like, oh, let's get together and shit talk this because we both want to like be like, this isn't right. We deserve blah, blah, blah. Like, you know,
Hmm.
I don't know. I think, I think, I'm sorry, but I really think
No,
so
but you know
because if
what?
for me,
Now if I fall into that, when I fall into that again, let's get real. I'm gonna remember you saying this, and I'm gonna be like, no, no, no.
you're like, I'm peeling out of town. I
See,
don't want to
this
go to
is
this.
also still a defect to me. I hear the word pity party and it makes me think of victim. And I'm like, but I'm not a victim. I don't act like that. Da, 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 da. Like how hard I fought in step one when it said powerless. And I was like, I'm not weak. I can still. And I don't know why my head just started moving like that when I said it, but it was like, I was like, no, but you're not wrong. Not wrong. So yeah, will fall short, but I don't punish myself, right? I look at it and go, okay, is there an amends I need to make here? Is there some accountability I need to take? And how can what is my plan for self-care and for getting back to a good place this weekend? And then how do I want to show up next week? Like, what's the plan? What are some tools?
That's right.
And I do that now, whereas before I would find that question completely irritating. And I would be like, I'll just figure it out as I go. I'll be fine, you know? But
Yeah.
even like Ryan asked me all the time, he's like, okay, so what's your plan to stay this way? Like, what are you going to be doing to make sure that you stay spiritually fit in this situation? And I'm just like, I'll be fine, But it's true. Like, what do I have? Where are my anchors? Like, next week, what do I need to do so that I can show up spiritually fit in all situations? I know. So now I got to make that list and stick to that commitment.
Oh my God, I got some wonderful news that you're gonna love.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, my daughter came to my nooner meeting and took a 3-month chip. How like tear-jerkingly beautiful is that?
Ah, makes me want to tear up.
I know, and I know you love her and she loves you, and
Very,
that's why
very
I was
much.
like, but I was just like, wow, what a
Very,
strong,
very
beautiful,
much.
amazing lady to have that self-awareness at 23 that things needed to change for her.
I'm going to write a note for her. I'll send to you if you could get
Okay.
forward
Yeah,
it to her for me.
absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, we should probably move on. I was like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay,
Are we even
number
doing questions or are we just having an open forum chat? Because I'm good
no,
with both.
no, we're doing questions at our pace. See, we don't have a
Like
lineup
it.
of people waiting to share, so we could
Okay,
share, talk
sure.
about the share, switch between the share, switch back and chat more about it. Like that's one of the things, at least when it's just two people on this, that it makes it really easy to kind of expand on ideas that inspire you. You know, when there's four people, it's a little bit more difficult for that, you know, but, and sometimes that's the magic of the just having two. So self awareness is the gateway to freedom. We cannot change what we will not face. What truth about yourself are you beginning to face with more honesty, Shannon?
What truth about myself am I willing to face with more
Are
honesty?
you beginning to face? Not willing, like you've
Oh,
already
well, like,
started.
ah, hmm, okay. That it's okay for me to remove myself from situations that don't work for me. That it's okay to say, I need a minute so that I can show up differently than I want to. That trying to talk about things when I'm emotionally charged is not the time to do it because it's not going to aid in a good result. And those are things that I've already put into place. But also to like, and it comes down to that what I am, what I'm not, and what I'll never be, right? Is I'm not going to view certain things or have certain opinions on stuff that maybe somebody who hasn't lived the same life as I have is going to. And that's okay. And I don't need to change to fit the mold more with somebody I'm not. I can stand proud in who I am. Well, of course, reading the room a bit more because sometimes we have a tendency, I do, to, how we speak as addicts speak to each other, there's a lot of humor around it, and maybe not everybody's ready for that. But yeah, like just more acceptance of who I am, loving myself, giving myself permission to be like, it's okay that, you might have stumbled along the way. Here's how you got, and not comparing my life to somebody else's. Or really at this point, like I'm turning 44 this year. I actually thought I was turning 43 and then just realized it was 44 this summer. And it's triggered some stuff in me to be like, well, I didn't have kids. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Right. Rather than looking at the things that I did and the reasons why I made the decisions that I did and being proud of that and being comfortable in it. It's like I want to focus on something like it was a shortcoming. And it's not, right? Like we all live such beautiful, different, unique lives. And it's never too late to do certain things too, like if I wanted to switch something in my career or go live somewhere else or just lots of stuff. There's still so much more time. And I'm grateful for that because if I was in addiction, it wouldn't look like that. So yeah, I think it's just more the knowing who I am, being comfortable in my authentic self, working towards that, and also accepting others the way that they are, not needing to change them or drive my point home.
I love that.
I don't know
I
if that
love
answers
you.
the question.
Thank you.
Thanks. Love you too.
Self awareness is the gateway to freedom. We cannot change what we will not face. What truth about myself am I beginning to face with more honesty? I don't know why it keeps coming up in my thoughts today, but it is for sure, for me, it's a mindfulness in my speech. Like unintended humor damage to other people is still damage to other people. Like I can't hide behind, well, that was funny, wasn't it? You know, like that no longer cuts it for me if I feel like it could have some unintended making people ill at ease or uncomfortable or negative like self-reflection for them. Like those three things where it's just like I think because I think the root of it for me was being a younger brother, but I was a specialist at like poking, you know, poking people with words in order to get them fired up because a reaction was still attention. And when you're the
Mm.
younger kid, it's like it's better to get some attention than no attention. You know, there's only so much attention going around. So if you're pissing someone off, you're guaranteed getting all the attention at that moment, you know? And I I always incorrectly use the term gaslighting. It is not gaslighting, but I like my daughter's like that is not gaslighting, Dad. But
Men have a bit of a tendency to not quite understand that meaning, but us
I
as
know, no, I absolutely don't understand it. Like, but I keep being reminded of from her that I don't understand, and I'm okay with that. But I do know when I'm saying something, even jocularly, that where there is no actual intention other than to get someone riled up. And why would I want people I love to feel ill at ease or insecure or whatever it is? And so, like, anyway, that is something though that I'm looking at with way more honesty, and you know, I've even kind of made a pledge to my daughter to try to not do that to her. And when I do it, I apologize and call it right away. Like I'm step tenning on that one, once a day minimum for sure. You know, but it's something that I just don't see as a healthy way to communicate with other people. Yeah. And before it was just like, oh, come on, don't be so sensitive or something like that. You know, like there would have been some brush off instead of taking responsibility for the, like, and that's one of the things, you know, I did a little bit of the Dharma recovery over the winter and the fall when I was still going to the meeting up in Kelowna because the Dharma one was right before it. And I was like, oh, group meditation, that sounds fun. But one of the things they talk about is mindfulness. And I think mindfulness is really important, you know, in your thought, in your words, in your actions, you know, in it all.
you know, anytime I'm on this podcast with you and I hear things, you help me uncover more things about myself. Like right now, I just had this big aha moment by what you were sharing, which is something that I've been dealing with in therapy and like processing with God, like, and you just hit the root cause. Cause I was like, why is this bothering me so much? There need like I know why based on the situation, but like there's something at the root and
Yep.
you just need me identify that root. So
Can you share what it was?
no,
What?
I'll
No.
share it to you in private. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. It's
Um,
just like I'm
no,
like,
no, no.
boom.
I want to, but this
Yeah.
is too
Yeah. Yeah.
personal
This.
to share on
Yeah.
this podcast. But I will share to you in private right after. But yeah, I should probably cut you a check because I've been paying a lot to try to process this. Well, my insurance company's been paying a lot to try to process this.
Our conversations always teach me something. That's, you know, that's part of why I wanted you to come on here because, you know, from our time together at Options, we always had conversations that were changing my awareness, really, you know, my self-awareness, but my also my awareness of just the program, you know, like you had more experience and I think differently than you. And together, it's like we put it together in such a cool way because neither one of us is afraid of showing our intelligence to each other. You
And
know?
you really helped me to come to terms with something that was so foreign to me, right? Like you and I both come from similar backgrounds and that we're in sales, right?
Yeah.
And we're with people and we're on 24/7. And here we are, used to that. that's taken away. And now we have to be in a treatment center being told what to do all day long, every minute of every day, right? Which actually I do well in a treatment center. It seems to be the only time I can let go of everything in my other life and sleep well, but no, it's still not enough of a reason to go back.
No.
But we were both pushed in that situation, right? And we both came to a point in our lives where we were like, what we're doing and the reasons why we've been doing it and what's been fueling that all this time just isn't aligning anymore. It's not clicking. And you helped me to slow down and to stay present and to find joy in other things. Like your music is something you're so passionate about, right? For me, when people used to ask me, like, what are your hobbies? I'd almost get irritated and be like, making money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's
Yeah, you weren't giving yourself the space for your
sure,
own
sure,
passions.
shopping or like, yeah, I box, but it's to blow off steam. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, I couldn't think of like when someone's like, well, don't you enjoy this? Or are you on a like baseball team or something? I was just like so put off by the question. I would like, it was like I associated anybody that had a life outside of work and a type A personality to be like not driven.
Hmm.
It's for me, and I know this just took a turn on the podcast, but hopefully this is relating to somebody. For me, my entire self-worth was based on my ability to produce, to provide for myself, and to excel in my career. And when that was taken from me, and now God's put me in a situation where I'm being humbled and learning a lesson, it has been healing in some ways, but also extremely difficult in others. And that's what rears back, right? It's not
Hmm.
the same as it once was. I'm in, you know, I'm working in different arena now. I'm building a business. It's all of this, right? And before I was at the top of my game.
Hmm.
But look where that took me.
I know I experienced the largest deterioration of physical, mental, at my greatest success. Like making the most money was the most damaging to myself, like where I hurt myself the most. Success did not breed self care for me. One bit. And in fact, it was almost like, well, the less I care about myself, the more I can get done. And that keeps me now at a mindful level of work. Just as before, I said to you right before the show that that there was somebody, and I was like, no, you can't have this space yesterday on my birthday. And I told them I'd call them in the morning, and that wouldn't have happened when Milan was in high gear. And you know what? I haven't had a guilty moment about that, which is another thing that's a result of this program, that there's an awareness that my state of mind and my state of body are worth whatever time and effort that takes too.
And something interesting for me is like, I've always been like, oh, I don't mind asking for help. I don't mind asking for this. Okay. So you say that out loud and God hears you. He's going to put you in a situation where you have to ask for so much help that it's like you start, like for me, it's like
Hmm.
self doubt, right? But even with my studio, we'll say, okay, I have not put the dedication and time into growing it the way that I want, that I need to, because I've got another job, got this, I got all these things, right? But now I need to stop, like step back, refocus, and I need to get help, which would require me saying that
Yeah.
I've been forget my success in business up until now. In this particular arena and this time in a social media driven world, I'm not hip to the groove, you know, like that'll just age me in saying that sense. But I need help with that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I need to ask for that. And I need to make a plan on what that's going to look like for me from a financial commitment, all
Mm-hmm.
these things. And for the first time in a long time, I don't have that crutch of financial stability
Mm-hmm.
that I used to. So
You
that's a
can
whole other chapter, you know?
you can literally ask ChatGPT to make your social media plan. Just but BT dubs.
Thank
Heck,
you. Another thing I really get filled up. But what I mean is I need a mentor, I need a coach, I need
yeah.
something that I need to check in with and be and be accountable to, just like I did in my recovery. Like it's no different in other areas of my life. And it's I'm so grateful for this journey. Even if it forces me out of my comfort zone, shakes me up sometimes. Like I always say, like I love living in that on that edge. Not so much anymore. I'm like, just give me something stable, bit more.
Yeah.
And I just lost my train of thought. I was going to tell you something that kind of tied into this self-awareness piece. Um, oh, my relationship with money. So that has been a big eye opener. When you are constantly driven to keep making more, making more, making more, you don't appreciate what you have. And it doesn't mean that I wasn't grateful and that I didn't look at from where I was to where I was again, but it was like I didn't have a true appreciation for it because it was never enough. I could always do better. I needed to make more. Like that's all that it was about. And now I look at things and I'm like, wow, like I don't need all these things,
Hmm.
right? And I didn't even appreciate so much what I had.
Right now, I need my computer, my guitar, and a good pair of walking shoes. And I'm pretty, oh, and this microphone. And I'm pretty good, like my needs have pared down way more. Young Gabriel, he said it well. He's like, the program has made me much less ambitious because I'm satisfied with where I'm at. And I never was before.
The relationship is helping me build with self
Yeah.
and with others has been like such a like pivotal moment, right? And yes, I need less. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if I have my relationship with God first and foremost in my life and my recovery, they're together, right? And I show up lovingly and present to my family. Everything else is like an icing on the cake. And I don't know why things are the way that they are sometimes, like why lessons come up. Maybe I haven't learned them yet, but you either embrace it or I try and fight that current and it's just going to drag me down anyways. So yeah, there's also this podcast has been a huge gift to me.
Me too. Like, I have learned so much as a direct result of all the conversations on this. I feel like it's like getting my master's in recovery, like, because I get to talk with people that
Kind of like
just
a
inspire
master's
me.
in adulting, right? Which is, by the way, far overrated. If there's anybody young out here still living at home, still trying to figure it out, you're exactly where you need to be and stay there. It's not
Yeah,
growing up is not all it's cracked up to be. It's like this meme or something I read recently that's like all the things I bucked doing when I was young are the things I want now. Going to
yeah,
bed early, getting a good sleep,
yeah.
eating well. Just the
It's
simplest
true.
things.
It's so true.
Okay.
Okay, you got a
So
question for me?
this one's an interesting one. So I'm gonna read it and then I'm gonna phrase it for a question.
Okay.
What if I'm too self-aware? Is it possible to be too self-aware? Yes. This happens when we start trying to intellectualize away our feelings and emotions rather than learning from them. We have to feel so we can heal. Trying to rationalize away how we experience life can be as harmful as suppressing or ignoring uncomfortable emotions. So I thought this was interesting because I'm sure you can think of a time in your life where rather than just accepting your feelings and emotions and learning from them, your mind gets going and tries to almost justify why you feel this way. Has that
Hmm.
happened to you?
Yeah, like, so what it made me think of is moments where I'll overthink something so much that I'm like paralyzed by the fear of potentials, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah.
it's like I can conceive of the effects of what I'm doing so much that it can paralyze me from taking action in any direction. And for anybody out there who's like, what the hell is he talking about? It's kind of like the damned if I do, damned if I don't thing, where it's just that there's so many potential consequences of what I would do through my awareness. Like I'm thinking of a situation that it could be hurtful to Shannon, say, or but if I do the opposite, then maybe I'm hurting Bryant. And then maybe, oh, hold on, is that going to now hurt my mom because I'm not doing that? And then if I'm like just looking at it instead of like, what's the, what is it, the principled thing to do here? And I'm trying to become basically trying to take my will back through consequence analysis, you know? And I would say that that to me can just bring about inaction and over like it just was doing a podcast on enthusiasm, and enthusiasm's like 1 to 7 and 8 to 10 is anxiety, and they're actually the same thing. And so what I feel like is that this is kind of related to that, in that if my self awareness level takes my enthusiasm for self awareness and then pushes it past that 7, I'm like now anxious about because of my self awareness. And that's where, for me, it's become damaging. It's just like any of our natural instincts gone too far, becoming defects, right?
Yes.
And it's the exact same thing with self awareness. Is that, like self awareness to me, after that, after 7, say, it becomes self obsession.
Hmm. God, I love that. From self-awareness to self-obsession. Ooh.
Ooh, I know. I was like, just right now, I just thought, I was like, yay.
For me, like to think of that question is brings me right back to that mentality I had in addiction that was if you lived the life I had, you would drink too. If you'd gone through the traumas I'd had, you would party the way I do too, you know? And then it
Hmm.
just got back past the point of even caring why I justified it. That's how I rolled, in or in the way type deal. So self-centered, right? And that stinking thinking that happens, like, it's not immediately like when I take that drink, I am of that mindset. It's leading up to it too, right? It is getting in that victim mentality, feeling justified, all that
Well,
gross stuff.
it's like raising the fuck it button out of the dash.
Well, there's
Like
just no
there's
gratitude, no
yeah.
gratitude. Everything's entitlement and everything's a nuisance, and I'm irritated by everything. And I look back and gosh, like this chapter of my life has forced me to see the error of my ways far before I took that drink in
Mm,
different situations and different parts of my life. And I don't get sucked down into that hole of shoulda, coulda, woulda, It is
yeah.
what it is. I've accepted that. Now, how can I course correct and not fall into that trap again? Right. So, yeah, it's when I feel some type of way and I'm not just acknowledging my feelings. Like I think I've shared on this podcast before that, you know, I dated somebody before who pointed something out to me, which is a huge learning lesson for me. And it was, you don't tell me how I feel, you tell me what I did wrong. And I was like, whoa, because I felt like saying, I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm this was all signs of weakness. Right. But if I was just like, well, you did X, Y, and Z, da 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 da, and justified attached my emotion and feeling towards their behavior. Well, guess what? There are days I'm going to feel hurt. There are maybe not even full days. There are moments, times, whatever you want to call it, where I feel let down. And that's okay. I can acknowledge that and say, okay, let me, give myself some self compassion here and accept my feeling. I don't need to dissect it. I don't need to stay in it. It doesn't need to become my new personality, right? And it doesn't have to just be, oh, well, it's because of this person. It's because of a lot of reasons, right? But it's a feeling, it's an emotion, and I'm allowed to have those, and it doesn't make me weak for it. And I don't have to explain that till the cows come home or try to intellectualize like, oh, well, you know what? The reason I'm feeling hurt is because of da 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 da, da, and that ties into this and all that. Like I can work that out in therapy and stuff, but it's okay to feel things. Now, if I allow that to drive me into behaviors that don't align with my core values or the way that God wants me to live, then that's something I need to look at. But it's just acknowledging it, accepting it, giving myself the space to be able to feel and process, and then I move on from it. Because, like, sitting there trying to justify and rationalize things that sometimes aren't even rational, um, just puts me into a spiral of like self doubt and criticizing myself or criticizing someone else. And then I give them the power and the control over how I feel.
Yeah, you're their puppet.
Yeah. Like, and
Yeah.
I don't want to live that like, well, of course I'm this way because X, Y, and Z. Do I know there are triggers in me based on experiences I've had? Absolutely. But I can acknowledge them and I don't have to let it become my new being.
I love that, and that leads right into my next question, actually, which I feel like once I ask this, you're kind of going to get to expand on what you were just talking about. The steps don't shame us for who we were, they help us understand who we are. What have you learned about your patterns that you used to deny?
Yeah, I think I've kind of touched on a lot of that. I've had patterns in the way that I react to things and feeling justified and stuff. Well, you did this, so I'm going to do that. And that has been a big learning curve for me in recovery, that eye for an eye mentality, that you're not going to talk to me like this. You're not going to disrespect me like this. You're not going to X, Y, and Z without me putting you in your place for it. Sometimes the strongest thing that I can do is, oh yeah, and not let it self consume me because then I'm playing God, right? And all I'm trying to do one day at a time is let God do his job and me be a humble, obedient, like servant of God, right? As it said, not, you know, this person said this about me, or this is what's happening in this area of my life. I know what to do. I'm going to reach out to this person and handle things because then that just fuels the fire, makes it worse for myself and probably the people around me. And I'm not feeling any better. I'm sucked into that vortex of toxic and sickness. I don't need to be at somebody else's level, but I also don't need to put them in their place to be able to move on from it and practice the way we lift resentments, right? Venting it out. I've got a sponsor, I've got support for that. And sometimes it's just me praying and communicating with God. And it'll lift far quicker than when I try and play God myself.
I love that. The steps don't shame us for who we were, they help us understand who we are. What have I learned about my patterns that I used to deny? You know, I think really, I don't know if I like verbally denied it or just denied how it was occurring, but it certainly is that, I don't feel a certain way because of you. I feel a certain way because of how I react to you. Like, and that my perception is dictating my reality. And
Mm.
like in my step work, I swear, like I told you before, I was going to have the lineup of apologies, single file line, no budding, everybody line up over there, because I got resentments. And I thought by the time I was done my step 4, I was going to have ironclad arguments of why everybody owed me an apology. And then I was like, oh, okay, here, go come over here for the amends line. I don't care if you bud, but and it just showed me my part in all these things and how I was really twisting other people's actions into justifiable binges on my part. And what was my terminology there? My emotional amplification in order to enable using, and that's what I was doing with people. I was amplifying emotions to go use more, and that was me. That was me that was creating that extreme emotion. It wasn't you making me super mad. It wasn't that event making me super sad. It was me doing that. And that's, to me, that's I used to just play the victim and have the pity parties. Like, I was the prince of pity parties. I could hold a pity party. We could pity party for days. Shannon, you'd call me, you'd be like,
Fill a
I got the
room.
pity. I'm a got the party. We'd be like, pity, party, pity, pity, party. Like, pity, pity, party all night. Woo! Like, it was, and I was, I know, like, there's friends now where I'm like, oh my God, my entire relationship was pity parties with them. Like, and that's one of the things is that now I don't want to throw that ball back. And it's
Mhm.
really awkward with those friends because there's really nothing they're doing wrong. It's just that I won't play the pity party game anymore. It gives us very little to talk about.
Mhm.
And it's okay. But yeah, I would say for me, that's my answer to that one. Do you have another question for me?
I do. Can we just take a 5-minute bathroom break real
Oh,
quick?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay. So this is what causes poor self-awareness? Fear of being vulnerable. People who are not self-aware are afraid to be vulnerable. They are worried that they will be judged or rejected by others, which causes them to remain unaware of their feelings, thoughts, motives, and behaviors. Share with us a time in your life where you had a fear of being vulnerable and how you've combated that.
I would say really, it was probably when I felt like all of a sudden I was not in control with my addiction. And, I still, I still was at the point where I wasn't wanting to stop completely, but I knew I was out of control. And my fear of vulnerability was sharing that with anybody
Mhm.
because I felt like, first of all, I felt like there would be like an implied weakness about it, and I was afraid that people were going to take the substances away from me permanently. So
Mm.
it really, it was. I would say that then was kind of like the beginning phase of the lies, and that just got worse and worse and more deceptive as things went on because there was and then that just precipitated shame and guilt about the lies and the action, and so I was afraid to be honest with anybody by the end. Like, I don't really know if anybody knew everything that was going on with me. I don't think anybody did. Let's say that. I'll say 100%. So yeah, there was a fear of vulnerability of who I honestly was.
So interesting, hey? That
Hmm.
it's like we're scared that if we actually speak about what's going on with us, then that safety net we have, even though it's killing us, is going to be removed.
Yeah, I know. Then that just shows that addiction can, at points in your life, be stronger than your will to survive. For sure. And anybody who's out there who's like, why couldn't they stop for me? They can't even stop for themselves. Like, quit being so self-centered. You know, like, it's so true. Like, somebody who's never been in addiction has no clue what we're up against. No clue. And
No,
that's,
or what we're up against, even outside of the substance, because,
yeah,
you had a lifetime of addiction and now you're trying to live differently. And we still have that mindset. And like, I explain that to somebody I love, what it's like. And I'm like, it's literally like fighting a current every single day, like imagine that you have this thing that's there that your innate thought process, right, is being guided by, and you have to do the opposite all day long while that addiction's firing at you. It's sometimes it's like trying to get from one side of the road to the other without being burned in the lava of hot coals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's exhausting, because when I'm at my weakened moments, right? Like think of a normie will say, they're sleep deprived, maybe a little hungry, kind of stressful week, right? Feel a bit overwhelmed. They have a vino or whatever to take the edge off, or they go for a run or whatever people do that don't smash booze like I used to,
Yep.
Um, and it's pretty much lifted. Well, that can be like a state of being for me. You know what I mean? That I've got to, like, it's God really that's got to pull me out of this. It says in the book, there'll come a time when there is no mental defense. Like that defense has to come from God. And I got to be aware of, am I hungry? Am I tired? Am I lonely? Am I angry? Have I gone to a meeting? Have I done this? Have I done that? Did I connect with God today? Did I meditate? Like it's a script of things that I have to do on a daily basis just to show up as somewhat of a contributing human being in the world that isn't, creating enemies and turning life into a war zone. And I'm not saying like we have it so much worse than others, but it's a disease and it centers in the mind.
But and it takes self-awareness of where you're at in your uh spiritual condition, like like um for what you have is the daily reprieve contingent on your what I'm just got a blank, but on your spiritual fitness, really.
Yes, it's
And
100%
and
that.
and and the one thing I want to add to what you said is like you get a normie who's having a bad day. Okay, even if they don't drink to take the edge off, their biggest risk that day is being a dick or a bitch. Like that's their biggest risk. Ours is falling back in a cycle that kills us. Like there's a bigger risk factor on the consequences. Like it's a whole different game of chance on a bad day for an addict in recovery, especially
It
one who's
is. And
not
you
spiritually
stack
fit.
you stack a few of those, like it's not like, oh, that was a tough week, like you stack a few of those and my car drives itself to a liquor store. Or more for me who hides my addiction at home, I'm ordering booze, like, and it's like that is a real reality of things. And yeah, like when that's been your kind of like fallback, right? Like this is, it always leads me back here. We have to be far more self-aware. Also, too, like with self-awareness and the recovery that we live, when you realize you didn't show up the way that you wanted to, we're in a 10, right? So that we don't perpetuate that leads back to addiction. I see people all the time being short with somebody, being flippant, being self-centered, being all these things. I don't like get a text from them or a phone call saying, hey, you know what? I reflected back and realized that I was quite self-centered in this situation. It's usually whatever, right? Like maybe they're not riddled with guilt or eaten alive like I am, because I know that if I don't make that right, that'll stack into now that's my new behavior. And then my mind will tell me, well, you know what? You've really been hard done by this week, and this person is the problem. You know what you need to do? You need to fire a few cocktails back and, get around somebody else that's going to drink with you and justify things. Like it's just a different ball game. Really is.
Absolutely.
And I can get addicted to anything. So, being aware of that too.
Well, and
That's
also I think honestly,
not
like
a road for the weak.
people get addicted to their roles, right? Like if you are the person who's like the freedom fighter of justice with other people trying to make them be a certain way, you know, people are addicted to that. People are addicted to be like justice warriors on like, well, I'll go around and I'll make sure everybody's acting within a good principle.
Well, and then, and I hear this too from like women I work with and like other people in our program too. It's like sometimes our loved ones, or people around us, they want us to be clean, they want us to be sober, right? And then we are, but then our behavior changes, and that doesn't really work for them because now we are no longer the scapegoat for absolutely everything. They can't just put it all on us anymore. We start to have boundaries or new, healthier ways of living. And it's a great reflection of maybe how unhealthy others are, but you never got a leg to stand on because you were the one that was messed up, right? And
And I look at that though, is that like how many years did those people put up with our shit? Gotta give them grace on a chance to change or not change or
100%. But I'm
whatever.
saying there are some people that we have in our lives that could benefit from an Al-Anon meeting or 10,
Yeah, yeah.
And
But I
I
mean,
hear it.
that's
It's
like
like some
saying
people want
when
you to
we
be
should
off the
go.
substance, but they don't really want you to be that healthy, right? Because
Hmm.
you change.
Yeah.
And innately people around you have to change too. And I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just saying that the healthier you get, whether you're one of us or not, the more God will put you in situations of unhealthy people for you to rise above. And if you aren't secure in yourself, that could be very trying too.
I truly believe doing a set of steps for anybody would be a good
Oh,
thing. Like,
absolutely.
and it's not like, oh yeah, I'm so freaking perfect. It's that no, now I see how perfect I'm not, and can admit it. Like that's the
Yeah.
difference.
And a
Is
lot
that
of people in
that's
life
the
are running
difference? Is that
around.
I'm not trying to put on that show anymore.
No, and a
Like,
lot of people are running around just riddled with fear, right? And they don't
and they
realize it.
and they don't know what to do.
I know.
And in and,
We're
and
blessed.
like and like at least doing a set of the steps can bring you, if you do them honestly and actually do the work involved, anybody out there, like you can actually learn something about yourself. And
Mhm.
I think that, like it's funny, we're on the topic of self-awareness, but but the truth is that you have no vehicle for change without self-awareness.
Boom.
Yeah. Is it me asking a question now, or is it you? I don't
It's
even
you.
know. Okay,
It's you.
okay. We once lived in reaction. Now, through self awareness, we respond with intention. What situation today called for you to pause and respond differently?
Pretty much this entire week where I did show up in reaction, not in intention. And I won't be doing that um because it was just gross and really affected me. Pause when agitated. So there was I heard this or I read something that was like, I don't react, I pause and then take action. And I'm like, that's so me, I don't live in that space anymore. Next two people I talked to later that day, I had to make an amends to.
You know what?
Within seconds.
My greatest screw ups in life, like if I'm playing a song and I look to myself and I'm like, "Ooh, fucking nice one, Milan," I will screw up the next moment. And life is exactly like that. If I hit a moment where I just like butter myself with pride, I'm like, I'm for sure going to have the opposite thing to humble myself, like will happen. You know, and in fact, it's now when I even start catching myself having those kind of thoughts, I'm like, what? Like, look out, Milan, here comes a defect. Like,
Well, it's like procrastination, right? I was talking um to my boyfriend about this and I said, like I don't know sometimes why I put myself in these situations. Like it's like in the midnight hour Bernie, like um that's like seems to be my ammo at times. And he goes, well, of course you do. You're an addict. We like that thrill, right?
yeah,
Oh, under the gun, I gotta this done. But it puts so much stress on me. I can visualize myself in my house watching a Netflix show going, I really need to do this right now. Like I need to get this task done. You know what? Actually, what I do need to do is get a snack And if I'm going to eat a snack, then I might as well burn through another episode, then I'm like, it's getting a bit little late. I'm a bit tired. You know what? I should do this with a well rested, cleared mind. Do I even go to sleep? No, probably do something else that isn't the task. So then now, when I need to do that task, life's presented something else that I would rather be doing. And I'm resentful that I'm being taken away from something that's enjoyable because I have to do this. Well, how long did I have to do it?
Yeah.
And like, you know, I'm 43 years old, still having to learn this lesson. It's like, I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. 2025 rolls around, and I've gone once. Like, it's freaking insanity. It's like the things I know I need to do to produce better self care and better ease of mind, I will not do and just put myself into a state of panic and irritability and frustration. And it's like, that's all addict thinking. So after this podcast, and really what I want to do is peacefully lounge in my bed, maybe a bit longer. What I need to do, something else. So what I'm going to do is that other thing because I
Nice.
will feel so much more productive and having accomplished things today on this day I've set aside for doing things I need to get done because that's part of a self-care routine. It's not just lounging around, going on
I'm go-
social media.
I'm going to look up a video for deep stretching yoga for distance walkers because I've been walking a lot. Like I've been
My
walking like
mom swears by it. She's so healthy at her age and just so mobile. And she walks 2 to 3 hours a day. She overdid it at one point, but she's
yeah.
like, it's the absolute best
It's
exercise for you.
I'm doing like an average of like between 25 and 26,000 steps a day, about 20 kilometers a day. It's about
You have a
it's
counter?
Yeah, it's about a three to like the most I've done. I did in the last month 40,000, like 41,000 steps one day, but that was like a very lot of walking. But anyway, though, my goal today though is my self care is to spend some time doing yoga to undo the tension that's in my body. Like I know that I'm close to hurting myself. Like I'm not quite there, but because I don't just like Lottie Dawn walk. I'm like, "Toof, toof, 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 toof." But
Naturally, if you're going to do something, you're going to do it with all you
I'm
are.
gonna do it crazy. Okay, we once lived in reaction. Now, through self awareness, we respond with intention. What situation called for you to pause and respond differently today? What it was, Michelle, we had a couple feasts for my birthday yesterday, and she really wasn't feeling that well today. And like just in her guts, like not feeling good, but she had to go to work. And it's kind of like the thing on each other's birthday where whoever's birthday it's not, they clean up the birthday thing. Like, and I saw that there was a bunch of stuff today, and it would have just like pushed her and made like she would have done it all before work and made herself crazy, and it would not have been fun. And I was just like, nope. I'm like, stop. I'm here today, and you're not. I'm like, you just leave this. I'm like, it will not make me happy for you to do this because it was my birthday. It'll actually make me feel like shit watching you do it, and I'm just like, don't you know and so today it was just having that self-awareness that I like regardless of what kind of like weird what kind of weird like you make like a social pledge and then you feel obligated to follow it even when it's not the right thing with each other like on that particular moment. And I think it's okay to be flexible. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
It's
do
also
you have
okay to
another
say,
question for me?
it's also okay to say no and not be everything to everyone. And it's okay
Hmm.
to not participate in every social situation. And, the older I get, the better I feel about no, you know,
Yeah. Oh,
without
yeah.
also running the risk of not completely isolating too, right? So it's always the balancing act too.
That is a hard one. That is a hard one because I feel like when you say no too many times, people just stop inviting. Like that. What is a relationship without like reciprocal incidences that occur? You
And
know.
I think it's okay to say, you know what, I'm not in a headspace to be social tonight. But what I do is I value my friendships and
Hmm.
I value my time with this person. So perhaps I make a different plan, you know? Maybe it doesn't always have to be getting together with somebody, it's like going out to eat or this. Maybe we just
Hmm.
take a walk or you come over and we have coffee and we chat, right? Also, a big part of being vulnerable for me and testing that is letting people in. I'm so used to just being like, I got it, I got it, I got it, right? And
Hmm.
yet I'm here for my friends emotionally when they're struggling. I have to instill the same trust. Hey,
Hmm.
you know what? I'm not having a good one with this one. I could really use some support, maybe some guidance. Let people in because that's how you build intimacy in all relationships.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, this is kind of my last point I want to
Okay.
touch on.
What
And
is your time frame for today? Just so I know.
I'm good.
Okay.
Um, okay, four key types of self-awareness are internal self-awareness, external self-awareness, bodily self awareness, and social self awareness. These types of self awareness involve understanding your own feelings, thoughts, values, and motivations, how others perceive you, your physical sensations, and your role in social situations respectfully. So, share with me some times where you have been aware in these situations. Like, have you experienced a physical sensation in a conversation before that has like prodded you to go, ooh, what's coming up for me now?
Wow. Um, yeah, there's a whole lot there, like I was trying to think of an example of each of the four as you were saying it.
Mhm.
And right now, I'm going to bring it to this because it really is the crux of what I'm really trying to surrender. Like surrendering right now is kind of like the main focus of my program. Like everything else is kind of like I'm trying to focus at helping my surrender in all respects of my shortcomings, my defects, and in life, and so you know, okay, like my internal awareness is that I'm starting to look inside on that and see, is it is it a matter of preference inside me that's trying to guide my choice? Just to go against life, is it my preference that I'm trying to side with in that situation? And then my external awareness of myself is that, like, am I trying to control on that? you know and that kind of wraps into me as well with the social one, because it's like, how is my lack of surrendering or my action in this circumstance basically cutting me off from my connection to the universe? Like, am I entering that moment with honor and respect, or am I entering it just with full of self will, trying to control it? You know? And generally, what I'm also finding is that when I'm not in a state of surrender, I will have tensions. I will almost for surely have some point in my body that's like sore, and and I will have more constriction in my chest cavity for breathing. And if I am actually doing the right thing and taking the position of surrender in a moment, I'm breathing easier, and I'm feeling like a level of peace about it. And I think that for me, it's it is the secret sauce to freedom. You know, that surrender is definitely the secret sauce to freedom, and so that's it's kind of one of the main things in my life right now. And I hope that answered
Surrender,
the question.
secret sauce to freedom. Rick, is that ever a good one? Surrender, surrender. I could have been reminded of that this week. Not that I was in a state to even receive that, but um, yeah, I noticed this week a big physical reaction that I had to something, and I realized immediately what it was. And I was talking with somebody that's close to me that I trust, and I said, "This is bringing X, Y, and Z up for me, right?" And I've already been through such a toxic situation with someone with this personality type, and now I'm in this, and it's just throwing me, right? Like into a frenzy pretty much. But now knowing what I know after experiencing that this week and having this amazing podcast and chat with you, it's what I could have done better, we'll say, and what I will do moving forward is to take a step back and try and understand where that person's coming from, right? And I did a really great job of communicating my feelings and showing vulnerability of the fear that it was bringing up for me based on the way that, this person was interacting with me. And that was good, but it's not like their behavior changes just because I'm honest, right? Like they are not in a place where they have any self-awareness. And then there's me that has my own self-awareness and is also in a way taking the inventory of them, of their lack of self-awareness. And that is together going,
Volcano.
but I can't change that, right? But I can change what I take on. And what I stopped doing was asking myself, does this apply to me? Like that's a big one, right? That I've learned in recovery is somebody says something to you or implies something or puts their fear onto you. It's okay to, in fact, it's necessary to stop, take a moment to reflect, however long that moment may need to be, and go, does this resonate with me? Is this who I am? Am I actually be like, are my feelings justified in this? And like I could say to you, um, well, how come you haven't done this, this, and this? Or what's going on with this, like an interrogation? And you're gonna get your guard up and be like, what the hell do you think you are to be talking to me like this? Right. But I'm projecting my own fear onto you. So you can take a step back and go, you know what? That's what she's accusing me of or what she's saying of me is not the truth. It's not my truth. So I'm not going to take that on. And I'm going to respond in a more loving, compassionate, kind way. And I'm going to move on with this. But it's for me, it was my own fear, it was my own like self-judgment, right? That was tying into all of that and just creating a whirlwind of stress for myself.
I love that. That was
All a
awesome.
learning process, my dear friend, all a learning process. But
Oh,
yeah,
learning
I
process.
do, I do, though I'm not really concerned with people's opinions of me, I am self-aware enough to realize, hey, I'm kind of showing up in a combative way here, you know? And
Hmm.
like even I reflected this week and called someone, I said, look, I feel like the last couple conversations we've had, I have really been on 10 and not in a good headspace. And I didn't need to drag you into that. I appreciate your support and you sharing your similar experience, but I'm an adult. I can process this without trying to bring people into the situation and gas it up for both of us. So, I was grateful that I had that kind of self-awareness to, own my mistake and then stop that behavior. I didn't do it and then keep going.
In my business, I found myself in the last 3 months sometimes sending a secondary clarifying text because, well, because I feel that due to, I think, probably my math background, sometimes I'm very factual, very direct, and to the point. And then I'll look back at that text and I'll be like, does that seem like I'm being arrogant or mean in that? Because there is no fluff. Like it's like literally point, 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 thank you, or whatever. And then I'm like, I'll send a secondary text just saying, hi, I wasn't trying to, be whatever feeling I feel like it could be implied from it. I'll say I was not trying to do that. I was merely driving and trying to make this very direct so that voice to text would screw this up as little as possible. And, I would say that half the time people are like, thank you. I took it that other way. Like, and so it's good to have awareness of, and also have some reflection on your actions, I think.
I love what you just said, asking for clarification, because it's definitely, a particular situation in my life with someone that like I can't avoid having interaction with, right? It's
Yeah.
it's part of a commitment that I have. And I think it will go a long way if I do say next time this comes up, just to clarify
Mm,
how I'm interpreting this is X, Y, and Z. I want to clarify what you're intending
mm,
by what you just asked of me, right? So that we're on the same, like, I feel like that is
mm.
such a healthier way than to be like, so here's what's not going to happen is you're
Yeah.
not going to speak to me like this. And it's not that I can't even say that because this is a professional setting, but in my mind, I will say to myself, no, 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 no. I'm not going to be, dealing with this. And then I show up reactive, even if I'm saying it in a nice way, it's just form of manipulation. Cause really underneath, I'm like, make sure you understand that you're not going to
Yep.
be speaking to me like this.
Yep. If it's going sideways in a text, I will call somebody. I will say, just for clarity, what are the intentions on this statement? I'm like, because right now, you know, um, I'm feeling a little bit hurt by this. And if you had a different intention, can you please explain this to me? Because I cannot see that from these words. And generally, um, generally, it is people who are real brave at being insultive during texts. And just clarifying that verbally so they can hear that I'm actually hurt from it. Most people don't want to be hurtful, but they kind of don't care if they are at the same time. They're like, oh, I don't want to directly eye to eye hurt you. I just want to be like, whatever, and then just throw you a little wave of shit or something.
It's so true, though. You're not wrong in saying that at all.
Mhm. And for me, it's just like I'm like I just want this to be talked about. Like if we're going to be shitheads, then let's at least both acknowledge shitheadery and move forward. Okay, do you got time for another question?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Self awareness gives us the power to shift from fear to faith, from blame to responsibility. Where in your life are you practicing that shift right now?
Okay, say again so I know where I'm practicing that shift right now.
Yeah, self awareness gives us the power to shift from fear to faith, from blame to
Mhm.
responsibility. Where in your life are you practicing that shift right now?
Pretty much what I just shared on, right? Like
Mhm.
it's an innate fear that's coming up, right? For me in two areas in my life. And I need to be in faith, but I also need to communicate my needs and feel steadfast in that, right? And then decide to which outcome, like, I'm okay with this. I can be patient in this if there's a timeline set around it, or this is just not going to work for me and be okay in that. So that comes with faith in God and saying, okay, I trust that this is a loving relationship and this is a safe space for me to say how I feel. And it's about how you say it, right? Coming from a vulnerable place, not from like a talking down or a spiritual hilltopper. Hey, this just isn't going to fly, because people get real, they shut down, they get turned off by that. But if I say, here's the fear that's coming up for me around this, and I want to talk to you about it and look towards a resolution.
I love that. Okay, Milan. Self awareness gives us the power to shift from fear to faith, from blame to responsibility. Where in my life am I practicing that shift right now? I'm practicing it in the way that I've changed how I pray. Like
Mhm.
I'm praying gratitudes and I'm praying gratitudes for my struggle, but I'm also praying gratitudes for the faith that's replacing my fear. Like literally that sentence, for the fear that's replacing faith, for the love that's replacing anger, for the tolerance that's replacing intolerance. Those things are part of my surrender and my prayer on an everyday basis. So, you know, literally every day doing that. And, I don't think I have anything else to say on that other than holy shit, it works. Whoop.
I love that. Are we doing a lightning round or what?
Yeah, you want to do some lightning?
Sure.
Let's do some lightning round. Okay, here we go. Pulling up the timer. And you are done your questions, though, right?
I am.
Okay, so lightning round Starcic questions. Here we go. As we grow in awareness, we stop being surprised by our triggers. We start preparing for them with tools. What trigger are you becoming more aware of, and how are you prepared to handle it?
Mhm. So I'm quite in touch with the narcissistic personality type and um, people's need for control, right? And that really rubs me the wrong way based on situations I've experienced and work that I've done. So when I feel that physical reaction to that, that's when I need to stop. I need to not respond or engage in that moment. I need to take a step back and reflect it. Also, get to a place where I can properly read something and accept that information without reading what I think may be written in it because it sounds like a similar experience I've had.
Whoa, that was a lightning and well rounded. Okay, as we grow in awareness, we stop being surprised by our triggers. We start preparing for them with tools. What trigger am I becoming more aware of, and how am I preparing to handle it? For me, it was I was experiencing a lot of anxiety about the financial wreckage of my past, and my preparation for that is first of all for taking awareness and ownership that hey, I caused this. B, this is not going to happen in my timeline.
Mhm.
And then by trying to not have five coffees and create myself in a like borderline anxious situation, like also to be praying for the anxiety and that fear of the of that financial repercussions to be gone, and just also by praying gratitude about my current coping abilities in that situation. That to me has been some of the biggest changes for me in that. Next one, Shannon B. Awareness without action is only observations, but awareness with humility becomes transformation. What are you willing to do differently now that you see yourself more clearly?
Ooh, transformation. Well, like the more self-aware I am of, you know, how I perceive things, what, can cause me to react rather than just take it like a grain of salt. That's huge, right? Because I always like when someone says, "Oh, you handle that so well." I'm like, "Well, I guess it depends on the day and the mood that I'm in," right? I'm quite aware that if I'm not spiritually fit or I'm already struggling with something and it's like the straw that broke the camel's back, that's not a solid time for me to make an accurate appraisal or self-appraisal of something. So I need to at times take a step back or not engage in a conversation that I know is only going to fire my defects just to get my point across. Like, I'd rather be happy than right.
I love that. Okay, awareness without action is only observation, but awareness with humility becomes transformation. What am I willing to do differently now that I see myself more clearly? You know, what I would like to think I'm doing differently now is taking responsibility for the effects of my actions on others. Like I was saying earlier on in the show about the mindfulness with the things I'm saying or doing. It's that I can't just turn a blind eye to how those words affect you anymore, and I can't mask the pain they may cause with humor anymore. I just don't feel good about that. And Some people are like, man, I love sarcasm. And I'm like, great. I'm like, but I just see it now as potentially having some hidden hurtful truths in it. And I don't feel good about it anymore. Okay, self awareness. Yes, self awareness invites us to explore, not judge, to get curious instead of defensive. What recent behavior or feeling sparked curiosity instead of self condemnation?
Mm, I think anytime I become more aware of my authentic self, or, you know, why I am the way that I am, or why I experience certain feelings or such heightened emotions around things, is a great opportunity to learn more about me and to process things that maybe aren't sitting right under the surface, but a bit more at a deeper level, right? Like, I am a passionate person that looks as I love with all that I am. Also, when I'm hurt to my core, right? When it comes to certain things. And that's accumulation of a lot of experiences, but it's also who I am as a person. I'm deep, you know what I mean? And I'm intense and I'm a lot of those things, but that can also be toxic in ways too. So it's allowing myself to feel things and understand myself, and then shape shift so that I don't show up in a toxic behavior rather than a healthy one.
Woo wee, you're sizzling them out here, Shannon. Self awareness invites us to explore, not judge, to get curious instead of defensive. What recent behavior or feeling sparked curiosity instead of self condemnation? I heard a really amazing share on honesty by this lady at one of the meetings that I went to this week. And I realized that in some aspects of my life, there was still being small dishonesties. And what I realized from that is, there is no small lie. There is either a lie or not a lie. And so it's gotten me to start looking at why I would make up such stupid, inconsequential lives to be living a life that's not in truth. And so it's definitely got me curious, and it's going to definitely be a large part of my next step four here coming up because I'm in a step working group right now. And there we go. Boom. Okay, freedom rises when we stop fearing our reflection, Shannon, and begin listening to what it's trying to teach us. What part of your inner self are you beginning to accept with more compassion?
Oh, God, part of my inner self, more compassion. Um, that I that I'm not perfect and I'm not always going to handle things in the way that, my most healed self or my most highest self will, right? But I'm also aware of things that keep me at a low vibration, right? Like, I'm always trying to operate at a higher vibration in a healthier state. But there are certain things that they're deeply entwined with fear. And they really irk me and make me feel like I want to just cut that off, right? Like, I'm done with it, rather than process my feelings around it. And talking today really helped me to get to that root cause of it. And sometimes I just need to say, hey, you know what? I'm struggling with this and I can't get out of it. And I do ask for help, but and I know I'm going over, but I also have a tendency to obsess and to stay stuck. Like, it just keeps ruminating, right? When I don't know how to let it go. And that's where I need to reach out more in the moment.
Woo! You know what? I was so into your answer, I can't figure out what question I asked you. I know that sounds ridiculous. Was it what part of your inner self are you beginning to accept with more compassion, or was it what recent behavior or feeling sparked curiosity instead of self condemnation?
It's self-condemnation, that one.
Okay, okay. So,
Yeah.
what recent behavior or feeling sparked curiosity instead of self condemnation? You know, that for me would be that surrender.
Mm,
Like realizing that I had that gone completely down the wrong path of my defect removal, Instead of hating myself for being wrong for so long inside my program, I actually just got really curious about uh, how I could further surrender, and it's taken me down a mystical path that is unparalleled in the growth of peace and joy in my life. Okay, I got one last question.
Okay.
Okay, but it's a doozy, so get ready. Here we go. It's going to take all of this super Shannon you got. In self awareness, we see that we are not our defects. We are souls learning to live in truth. How has separating your worth from your behavior helped you heal?
Um, Knowing that I'm deserving. I just saw myself because that word still doesn't sit well with me, but knowing that I'm of value, that I'm worthy of love, that I'm worthy of being treated well, that I'm worried of self-compassion, worthy of that, and that I'm enough at who I am, regardless of external things, right? Like that has been big. And when I know that and I'm secure in self, I can roll with the punches and everything else in life. Like I can hear something and it can roll off me. It doesn't have to, like, it's like the train, you know? Something happens, this isn't my stop. I'm just gonna keep moving along, right? So yeah, stronger I am in self, the more that I realize God loves me. I'm enough by God. You know, I'm already forgiven, right? I can show up with a bit more of that inner self strength and courage.
I love that. Okay, Milan. In self awareness, we see that we are not our defects. We are souls learning to live in truth. How has separating my worth from my behavior helped me heal? Oh, I started the time. I'll start it now. When I was looking at myself as my defects, I didn't see myself as having the capacity to change,
Mm.
and whereas looking at it like, my behavior in my addiction, was precipitating this action or that action, that's different than me being rotten at the core. It was not right in the beginning of my recovery. It was in the lady's share, I think, probably about 9 months in or something, where she was just talking about how like she saw us all as these precious things that we just had to kind of uncover our souls for to let it shine again and kind of clean off that addictive behavior and all that pain and everything else for those principles and actions to shine out of us. And I just didn't see it like that before that. And that was a real fundamental turning point for me inside my program. I'm going
Well,
to leave
too,
that.
knowing that like how things that I've done, in addiction, that's not who I am, right?
That's right.
It's doing the best I could with what I had and what I knew.
But
And I don't have to, like, that's not like a badge I have to wear for the rest of my life as, a flawed person, right? Like it's that abundance and that healing and that believing that I'm worthy and that I'm enough and all of that, that I'm going to fall short and that makes me human and that's okay. And I'm not justifying like a bunch of shitty behaviors like, oh, I'm human, right? But I'm not going to grow in comfortability. Life's about learning, and I want to continue to elevate and continue to push forward. And I do that by acknowledging my wins and my losses. And are they really a loss or is it a learning experience that I can then, you know, shift into being a more elevated person?
well, and being present, like we
Huge.
can't change the past, but we can be different right now. And we have no clue what the next moment's going to be. So get your head out of the clouds for that one, and be right here. And just be nice, be loving, be honest, be compassionate, be tolerant, be accepting, or to the
Well,
best of your
if we're
abilities.
not present, it robs us from the experience of the moment, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you felt this way. God, I've done things and been completely not present, and then walked away from that going, I don't even remember what happened, or
Yeah.
because I'm too worried about something else, or I'm focusing on what's next,
Mhm.
and I miss out on the beauty of that moment. And if I wasn't present when we talked, I wouldn't learn.
Yeah. I agree. I love and appreciate you, Shannon. This was
Same, my dear
another
friend.
like blockbuster event in my heart. Yeah.
I love it.
So everybody out there, tune in next episode for more recovery fun. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye,
I love you like
everybody.
this much. Please help us help others. If you like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.